Welcome. This is the Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. Hey everybody, this is the Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. Glad you're here, and glad that Alex is here. Alex, how are you?
Good. Awesome, man. Good to be on again. It seems like it's been a little bit since we've been together, so it's always good to talk to you, even though we've only met each other once, which we can now say.
That's funny. I still get people all the time sending me emails. I can't believe you guys met for the first time in Phoenix.
Yeah.
That's a good event.
Absolutely.
We just released our podcasts. We kind of stagger our podcasts out, and we recorded a couple of them while we were there.
Yeah.
We just released one or two of them. We actually did one with Sean Terry, I think, as well.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And those of you that don't know, if you go to that episode, and I forget which episode it was, but Alex and I gave away, I'll find it here while I'm talking. Alex and I gave away our slides that we used in the for our presentations at that event. And where was it? Yeah, episode 160. 160.
There it is. 161.
Well, 160, I thought. Are you on your phone? But,
no, I'm looking at...
Well, 160 was with us and Sean Terry. It's when we were talking to Sean.
Yeah.
But episode 160 is where you can get our slides. So if you go to 160, just go to realestateinvestingmastery.com, do a search for 160, and you'll see our podcast. And there's a button there where you can get our slides. And Alex went into a ton of depth and detail about how to do deals virtually, which is a really good presentation. And I talked about how to flip lease options. It was a good event. But Alex, real quick, man, you got any deals you're working on right now that you want to talk about?
Sure. Actually, I just wrapped up a deal with Sean Terry out in Phoenix there. I was able to get my private money guy involved, and we did a $4 million deal apartment complex.
Wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved on the sale and the flip side, but I was involved on the financing side. So nice. It was a great deal for Sean Terry, and I believe Corey Boatwright was working with him on it.
Yeah, I heard about this deal.
You did?
Yeah. I think Sean is telling me about it.
Yeah, and it turned out well. So anytime you have to float about $3 million out there, even though it's a one-day deal and it's, the buyer's money is already there, you still sweat a little bit, but it worked out.
So this was transactional funding, right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is a lot of money to just float out there. So how long was it kind of out in the ether?
It was out there, let's see, less than 24 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But a sun did set in between that time, so.
Did you get much sleep?
I was good. I mean, what the key with dealing with doing deals like that is you work with good people, and you also make sure everything is legit. You got paperwork on both sides of the deal and a good title company, and you're in touch with the title company, and barring some massive fraud that blindsides you, there's really no way you can lose.
Yeah. So just so people understand what transactional funding is, can you describe that, Alex?
Yes. So transactional funding is when you need money for a day, essentially, in order to close a deal, because title companies nowadays want you to have your own funds in order to fund both sides of the deal. So you have your A to B side and you have your B to C side. A to B is when you are buying from your seller. B to C is when you are selling to your buyer. And you need your A to B side in order, you need your funds for your A to B side to completely fund your side so that you can then flip it to your end buyer.
Yep. And sometimes it just depends on the deal, right? Depends on if is it a listed property? Are you selling it to an investor? Are you selling it to a retail buyer? And sometimes it's just depending on the title company, how comfortable they feel with doing these kinds of deals. Because sometimes you can use the buyer's funds to close with the seller's deal. But sometimes you can't. So that's why transactional funding is important. And anybody listening to this who doesn't have a transactional funding partner, you should find somebody that can fund these kinds of deals. And Alex, I don't know if you do that ever. If the deal's right, do you let?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can people get in touch with you if they? What's your cell phone number, Alex? If they want to ask you,
they could send a message.
Okay. Through Facebook, what's a good way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can message me through Facebook. Facebook's fine. In my Wholesaling Houses Full-Time Facebook group, you can join there and then message me that way. Yeah, I would say those are the best ways, or send a message through the show.
Yeah. Very cool. I don't have a deal that big. Oh, by the way, Sean told me what his wholesaling fee was on this apartment complex. Are they? So they're flipping it. They're not buying it and doing anything with it, right? They're just quick flipping.
Yeah, it was just a straight flip, wholesale.
They made quite a bit of money on this deal.
Yeah, we're not going to disclose all the numbers on it, but yeah, they did very well.
Very, very well. And I'm assuming you and your private lender did pretty well on these transactional funding fees.
We made some good money too on the transactional side. Yes.
You know, it's a big deal, but you're just adding some zeros to it. You know, it's not.
That's it. That's it. It's a $40,000 deal. Just add a couple more zeros, and it works the same. Yep. The caliber of people you're dealing with might be a little bit different, but it's the same.
Yeah, that's really good. The only thing I'll tell you is we're working on a lease option deal right now. It's a nice home in a good suburban area of St. Louis. The seller has a little bit of motivation, not a ton, but they don't have enough equity. Well, even if they did, they don't want to share any of it with us. But they accepted our lease option offer. And we're just going to be flipping the lease option. And it's a nice house. Those of you who know St. Louis, it's in the Baldwin area. And in Baldwin, that's an area where you typically, we just lost our guests. I think they got annoyed for making them wait so long, Alex.
We're here.
No,
they're there. Good. I'm sorry I said that. No, I feel like an idiot. but I'll shut up because where we have some special guests on the show today, Alex. Jimmy and Bob from St. Louis. These guys are in my own backyard. And I guess I am a hermit, Alex, because I just don't get out much. It took us 6 years to meet each other for the first time, and then
see that.
And then
we're kind of new though too, Joe.
Yeah. Well, these guys are crushing it right now in St. Louis. They're doing a lot of deals. And enough about us, Alex. Jim Vreeland and Bob Scott, how are you guys?
Great. Happy to be here.
Jimmy, you prefer Jimmy over James, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, James is only when I'm in trouble.
Okay. So, how are you guys?
Awesome.
Thanks for being on our podcast. We appreciate it. Alex, you're gonna like what Jimmy and Bob have to say. I was talking to them the other day, and they're doing a lot of really cool, creative deals, and they kind of came out of nowhere just in the last year or two, and are just doing a bunch of deals. Jimmy, Bob, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about how you guys met and what were you doing before you got into real estate?
We met at a buddy of ours' 30th birthday party, and we both had a common background. We both played football at a service academy, so we had plenty to talk about. We had both been overseas around the same time. And then we were both talking like, hey, I invest in real estate. And Bob was like, yeah, I wholesale. So our first deal we did together was actually me giving him a private loan. And at the time I was working in a W-2 job in medical sales.
Okay.
And so we bought a 4-family together in South City on the state streets, and it didn't go so well, but we kept plugging along, and then we bought 5 more rentals. Still didn't go so long, but like I'm really stubborn, so I don't quit easily. And then we bought like 5 more, and still the same struggles. And then Bob went to a Ron LeGrand lease to own conference. He's like, dude, this is what we're gonna do. And we were sitting on my boat in the Mississippi wakeboarding, and we listed everything we hated about our fledgling business, and lease to own solved all of those problems.
I love it. Bob, I've heard your name around town before. How long have you been doing deals?
I've been doing deals probably for 6-7 years.
Yes.
I did primarily wholesaling, a lot of stuff in South City when stuff was just insanely cheap. I mean, you could buy two families and 4 families for $10,000-$20,000 a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I was just wholesaling, turn and burn, trying to do a handful of deals every month, and then slowly transitioned into selling turnkey rentals to hedge funds and out-of-state investors, and started rehabbing. But it was really small margin deals, buying houses for $5,000, $10,000 up in North County, and trying to put maybe 5 to 10 in repairs into them and sell for low 30s and just do a volume game. But that's a tough business to be in.
Yeah.
Kind of fell backwards into having rentals, met Jimmy, and we kind of took off from there.
When did you guys meet? How long ago was this?
2 years and some change.
Yeah, probably 2.5 years ago, met and kind of jumped into business together probably about 2 years ago now.
Okay, cool. And Ron LeGrand, we've got him. I've been going back and forth with his assistant, one of his 3 or 4 assistants. I don't know who. I'm working on getting him on the podcast, Alex. Get Ron LeGrand on the podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a legend. He's an honorary guy. I almost said an honorary old guy, but that wouldn't be nice. He's an honorary guy, and in fact, I'll see him next weekend. I'll be in Ohio.
Cranky on me, or what do you mean by? You mean cranky?
Yeah, cranky. Am I right?
Yeah, you got that. Yeah.
Watch him listen to this and not come onto your podcast now.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I love Ron LeGrand. I mean, the guy's a legend. He's been teaching the business for a super long time, and he's still doing deals today. And I'm actually going to be seeing him. I'll meet him for the first time in Ohio. I'm going to Cincinnati next weekend. So cool. You guys were kind of done a lot of deals where you were probably doing more traditional wholesaling, some buy and hold of rentals. And Ron LeGrand starts talking about lease options. And what about lease options interested you guys?
The primary thing was the extra income up front from the non-refundable option deposit. And for our price range of homes, we're still pretty low. Most of the deals we're doing are under $100,000 ARVs. So we get anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 on a typical deal, and sometimes as much as $8,000 to $10,000 up front. So obviously that's a nice extra payday. That's a lot of skin in the game from our tenant buyers. It's a lot for them to walk away from, and a big incentive for them to pay the rent every month.
Yeah.
And then the other big thing is our tenant buyers are responsible for all the repairs and maintenance. So one, obviously, we're saving all that money from a cash flow perspective, but then 2, from a management perspective, we're saving a ton of time. Right now, we just crossed over 110 units,
Nice.
And if those were traditional rentals, we would be pulling our hair out. But now all we really got to worry about is making sure the rent comes in. Everything else we don't have to deal with. I mean, if you just to coordinate sending a handyman out to a property and getting a bid and making sure the tenant's there and going to let the guy in, that's just a huge pain that we don't want to deal with and don't have to anymore.
So you guys you have 110 doors right now, right?
Yep.
How many single family homes would that be?
110.
Oh, okay.
109. We still have that one.
Yeah, we got 1 4-family. All the rest are single families.
But
Nice.
we found a lease-to-own buyer for the 4-family.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he's got an option to buy the whole thing, right?
Yeah, he's got like a master lease option, and then he subleases
And he's
to
getting
tenants.
close to buying it.
Awesome. So what's your ultimate goal with these? Now, these are lease options. You're buying these homes, right? So you own them?
Correct.
Right. And then you're selling them on lease option. So you're not doing a sandwich lease option.
We've got a handful of sandwich lease options, a handful of subject twos, but most of our deals we're buying cash and using private money to close on the deal,
Okay.
and then hold them.
Nice. And what's your ultimate goal with these things? Is it just to hold them as long as you can? Hopefully the tenant buyer buys it, but you're looking for cash flow on these deals.
Exactly.
We're strictly, we're primarily cash flow investors.
Good.
So if 5 sold through, I'm sure we would just take that money and buy 5 more.
All right. And do you mind if I ask, like, how much cash flow do you get on average for each of these houses?
On the Excel sheet, or like really happens?
Well, a spreadsheet can tell you whatever you want it to tell you.
Right.
And believe me, I know that from experience because I love spreadsheets.
I'd say our average on the spreadsheet it's like 250, but in reality it's probably 150.
Okay, yeah. And is that why is the difference? I'm curious.
Collection issues, and we keep adding to our team. Our plan is to build a bigger team that we can continue to leverage to either start new businesses or new revenue streams.
Yeah,
and we've been investing heavily back into technology, resources, systems to continue to improve our economies of scale. So rolling a lot of money back into the business.
Yeah. Okay, good. So even with a lease option, even though they're lease option tenants, they're tenant buyers, they're better than regular tenants, but you still have to manage these properties a little bit, right? You still have some times when they're late or they don't pay.
Yeah.
But the advantage to lease options, wouldn't you say, if they stop paying, you just evict them, and that's not that difficult to do, is it?
No.
And Missouri's a very landlord-friendly state, and we get another auction deposit when we throw the house back on the market. I mean, we had one property we had to go through eviction on in September, and from the day we got the tenant out to when we had another non-refundable auction deposit was less than a week, and we had another $4,000 in hand. Nice. So, those non-refundable auction deposits help weather those storms if the tenant does have some issues. And the other nice thing is we don't have to have the property in tip-top shape. We have our tenant buyers do some of the cosmetic repairs in the property, the final paint, some smaller carpentry items, nothing major, nothing that requires a permit or any type of real expertise like electrical stuff. But we can sell a property and not put as much money into it as a traditional landlord would.
That's true. And I've done a lot of lease options as handyman specials where I got the tenant buyer. I think I was telling you guys this before. I don't remember. But I had one house in particular in Florissant. That's North County, north part of St. Louis for those of you who don't know. And it was those condos that are out there. There's a ton of little townhomes, condos.
Yeah.
And one of them was completely gutted. Had no kitchen, no bathroom, no flooring. The walls were there, but that was about it. And I found an investor that just wanted to get rid of it. He had a private loan on it. There was no balloon. But he owed about $23,000. And at the time, you could buy these things for $5,000.
Wow.
And they were worth maybe 75 to 80, fixed up. So those kind of numbers are kind of the same today almost. But anyway, I couldn't make a cash offer because investors were buying these townhomes, if they were at all even interested in these things, were buying them for $5,000. This guy owed $20,000, but fixed up they're worth $80,000. So I gave him a contract to lease option his house for what his payments were for what he owed on it. So his payments were like $200 a month, and he owed about $23,000. And I turned around and advertised it as a handyman special lease option. And I got flooded with calls. And I set the option price. I didn't want to stay in the middle, but I just basically sold my agreement to a tenant buyer, and I set up the contract where the new buyer had to fix it up, and they had to pass inspection, they had to meet all the codes, they had to pull all the permits, they had to use licensed, insured, and bonded contractors, et cetera, et cetera. And I gave them a deadline. They had to do it in 2 months. They had to pay rent while they were fixing it up, and they had to fix it up before they moved in. And even with all those really, really strict requirements, I got tons of calls on it just because it was such a sweet deal for somebody who wants to live in that area and who can fix it up themselves. And sure enough, we found somebody. I sold them my contract for $35,000 or $4,000, about $3,000 to $4,000. I just sold my contract and got out of the deal, and everybody wins, right? The seller got somebody else to just take over his headache. Tenant buyer won because they're living in this house and only paying $200 a month. They fix it up. If they ever default, the seller gets the house back in better condition than it was when he bought it. That's why I love lease options, right? Because it just gives you so many different ways, creative ways.
There's so many options.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you hold their feet to the fire to make sure they were using licensed contractors and they actually got the work done?
Well, that's a good question because I didn't. Once I sold the contract, I was out of the deal.
Okay.
All I know is that it was fixed and they moved in a few months. So it became a contract between the tenant buyer and the seller, right?
Okay.
And then I was out of the deal. Now, how he did it, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that because in that area you got to get an occupancy inspection, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll look at that stuff to make sure there were permits pulled, but who knows?
We've also found with lease options that when it's the tenant buyer there for the inspection with the inspector is a lot more agreeable.
Oh, really?
Easier to work with.
That's a good tip.
Where if they see us as investors, they're going to grind us every way they could.
That's a great tip. I hope everybody listening wrote that down. All right, so you guys are both in the military. Thanks for your service.
You're welcome.
What did the military help you guys with that relates to business? I've always admired and respected people who are in the military because their sacrifices that they made, but they make great, for the most part, they make great business people, right? Because they're disciplined. And so many entrepreneurs are not. They're just lazy. How did the military help you guys in your business? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely easy for us to come up with an idea and execute. And hold each other's feet to the fire because there's a common language we have where I don't know if everybody who hasn't been overseas would relate to it, but it's not that hard of a stretch for us to create an idea on Friday, and by Monday we both trust each other to be executing and getting things done.
Nice.
I don't know if this is something that the military particularly teaches, or maybe people who have the personality trait are pulled towards the military, but I just say having persistence and not giving up at the first sign of things not working out.
Yeah.
And I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in Afghanistan, and he talks about what he learned in Vietnam. And then part of it was learning about inflation and taxes, and it at least woken my mind up to these things.
Yeah.
And when I had a corporate job, I was just like, I didn't like taking orders in the military. I didn't like taking orders in a job. And real estate is my way out. As soon as my passive income equals my expenses, I'm done.
Nice.
And I don't really need a lot of supervision or overwatch to accomplish things.
Nice. That's a fantastic goal to have. How far away do you think at this pace, how far away do you think you are from meeting that goal?
Well, I hit it last November and I quit my job.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's why you quit your job. Okay.
Right.
Awesome. So it's been almost a year.
Yep, best year of my life.
That is so cool. And Bob, how long ago did you quit your job? Or did you ever have
Bob's
one?
never had a job, Joe.
No, I quit in 2011. I was a civil engineer in the Air Force, so
That's right.
I brought a lot of project management experience, construction experience to the table, and just kind of at that point, I didn't have any passive income. If there's anything I would have done a little bit differently, I might have had a few rentals and a little money coming in on the side before taking that leap, but I'd done some flips on the side, some wholesales on the side while I was in the Air Force, and knew it's what I wanted to do. And I said, okay, my commitment's up. Let's figure it out. Yeah.
Very nice. One of the things, and Alex, feel free to jump in if you feel like I'm hogging the interview here. Just feel free to ask.
No, I'm listening and learning.
Okay, cool. Jimmy and Bob, what are some of your favorite ways right now to find deals?
I kind of sit back and let Bob find deals.
But believe it or not, we get a ton off the MLS. We're buying right now between probably 5 to 8 houses every month, and I'd say 80% of those are straight out the MLS.
Awesome.
So I've got a few saved, search criterias, and first thing I do every morning is I go through the new properties that hit my neighborhoods and price points that I like, and scroll through those and shoot out a few offers. And we hope to get a couple accepted every week. And then I'd say the balance is from wholesalers. And then we get a handful of deals that are just brought to us directly. We're not doing any marketing to any sellers right now, but we do a ton to rent-to-own buyers, and through that we get a lot of people who have houses that are going the wrong direction, whether foreclosure or whatnot, and they want us to step in. So just from that, as a side benefit, we get
So
deals.
you're finding, when you're marketing for tenant buyers, you're finding these tenant buyers sometimes have homes that they need to sell.
Yep, exactly.
Interesting. So you're getting deals off the MLS. I mean, everybody says the MLS is dead.
Yeah,
Too
Maybe that's
competitive.
why we get the deals. Nobody else is looking on there.
That's awesome.
No,
Now,
it's dead, Joe. Don't even look
These
at
are
it.
mainly lease options, right? Not just straight up wholesales. These are more on the creative side of things.
no, they're buying them and then selling them on lease options.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
And the lease options are our primary business. We still do some wholesaling. We wholesaled 2 this month, and we've got a few rehab flips going on as well. But our core is buy and hold with lease option.
So these deals on the MLS, are you just like when you see a house you like, you're looking at all the new property that comes on. Do you ever make offers on old inventory? Inventory that's been sitting there for 90 days?
I do when they've typically price dropped,
Yeah.
but for the most part, yeah, it's just new stuff. And whenever price drops, it'll pop up as new or changed in my search, so I'll see it. And most of those are REOs, short sales. I would say probably 75% are just REOs in the form of regular bank ones, and then Fannie Mae and HUD deals, and then maybe we get 1 or 2 short sales a month.
Generally, what kind of discounts are you getting on these deals from the MLS?
Based upon comps, a lot of the areas we're in are still pretty highly distressed, but there's always a handful of decent comps, and I'd say we are probably around 40 cents on the dollar.
Wow, that's pretty good. And these properties, most of them will need work.
Yes, yeah. What we look for is things that are functional, but a bit dated. That's kind of our primary thing. Stuff that's going to need a lot of work is going to be a big time suck for us managing the contractors and the whole renovation process. Where if we can find, your standard old lady house, grandma house, where it might not have been updated since 1985, but it's been meticulously maintained. We found oftentimes we can get a lease option tenant buyer to take the house as is, because everything works. All the systems are there; they're all functional. It's pretty much move and ready. It just might not necessarily been updated for 20, 30 years.
Right. So you're just making offers. Do you you close on them? Your private lender is pretty protected, it sounds like, with discounts like that, right?
Yes, very protected from an equity standpoint and from a cash flow standpoint.
Yeah, nice. You're marketing for tenant buyers. How are you doing that? What are some of the things that you find are working well for you there?
Sure. Well, I'm sure Joe, it's a huge demand for tenant buyers for rent-to-own properties, and that's one of the great things about lease options that we didn't mention earlier is you put yourself in a great supply-demand situation because most investors don't market their property. Most real estate agents don't do creative deals like that, and most home sellers, want cash right away, right? Yeah. We all want cash, and we all want it today. But if you can offer your house on a lease option, the demand is huge because I think I've heard estimates out there right now that of the total buyer pool, only about 20% of those folks can qualify for a mortgage today. So when we're marketing a lease option, we're targeting that 80%, and we pretty much have them all to ourselves. So it's pretty easy to market. Our three kind of core things we do are Craigslist. We do a ton of Craigslist postings every day. It still works great. And another one is we use a syndication site called VFlyer, which you post your property once there, and it shoots it out to 20, 30 other sites. And then for about the past 7 months or so, we've been doing Facebook advertising, and that's been working really well for us. We're getting probably about 20 leads a day for tenant buyers on Facebook.
That's amazing. Facebook has worked really, really well for me in the past. Bandit signs work really well if you want to put them out there. We're
yeah. Yeah, who was doing it for you?
Well,
yeah.
I'm not doing them, but like this house in Baldwin that I was talking about in the suburbs, we were getting very little traction on Craigslist. We couldn't put the house on Zillow because the homeowner already had their house there on Zillow or something like that. But we did like 4 or 5 signs, and my guy did it. And with just those signs, on one day we got about 7 or 8 calls, which is pretty good. And the cool thing with Facebook that is amazing is that it's not that expensive to do, and they're super easy to find. We tested a lot of Facebook ads, and this is something you guys should think about maybe doing. Do one of you guys have your license or not, or real estate?
I'm in the process of getting mine. I've been resistant against it, but we're buying so much that it's kind of silly not to recapture those commissions.
Yeah. Okay. So we were doing a bunch of these ads, and we tested pictures, tons of pictures, and we found the best one was a normal-looking blue-collar neighborhood house, and even the grass had a little bit of brown in the grass. And it was a single-family ranch with a little one-car garage. It was a good-looking house, but it wasn't like really nice or fancy or anything like that. When we did really nice suburban homes, didn't get as many leads. When you used a simple, like a North County home, if you're familiar with St. Louis, but just like a ranch with the 1-bedroom, even the grass had a little bit of brown in it, we got tons and tons of leads from that. And one of the things that we found, and I haven't done this as much as some other people that I know. I know a guy in Salt Lake City, Utah, who did this exclusively. He would get a house under contract to lease option. He would advertise it, and his main goal, he would find a tenant buyer for that house, but his main goal was to get as many tenant buyers from his Facebook ads as possible, because he would find the ones that had 10, 20, 30 grand to put down on a house. And then because he was the licensed agent, he would go then at that point and go out and find them a house. And it would be...
so he would just call them and solicit to then be their real estate agent?
Yeah, so everybody that, when they go from the Facebook ad or the Craigslist ad or whatever, would go to a website to fill out a form, to join our list or whatever. And one of the questions was, how much do you have to put down on a house? And he would call everyone that had at least 10 grand to put down. And I don't know, it was 1 out of every 20 or 30 that did. And he would get some more information, find out how quickly they're looking to move, and then he'd put his realtor hat on and then go out and find a house for them to lease option. And he would, put them in with his credit repair mortgage broker guy, and the mortgage broker guy would tell them, they need to do this and this, and they're a year away from getting a mortgage if they do this stuff, maybe. Not making any promises. So then he would approach other listed houses on the MLS. Like what he would do then, he would send that tenant buyer with the $20,000 to put down. They would send him 20 potential properties to look at and tell the guy, listen, just pick the top 5 that you like, and then we will make offers to the agents of those listed properties. And so the tenant buyer would pick 5, 10 that they liked. Then he would just call the listings agents of those properties and make an offer to lease purchase them. Would tell the agent and tell the seller that this tenant buyer has already seen our mortgage broker and this is what they need to do. This is their situation. And he would send them the properties that were listed on Craigslist for rent and for sale. And there's also a lot of properties, you'd be surprised, in the MLS that are listed for lease options already. And the commissions are negotiable. And so a lot of times he would have to negotiate with the listing agent saying, listen, if we're going to do this, I'm not going to take just the 1% or the 1 month's rent as a commission. He would negotiate his 3% up front, and then they would get their 3% at the back end. And, sometimes he'd get it, sometimes he wouldn't, but he would always try to get the 3% of the commission up front, 3% at the back end. And did really well.
3% of the agreed upon lease to own sales price?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
the seller, would the seller, even if they were selling retail, would they accept a tenant buyer?
Some of them would, some of them wouldn't. Most of them wouldn't. So he would he would send them like an order of preference, an order of priority. First, all the properties that were already on the MLS for lease option. Then second, he would send them the rentals. And third, he would send them the for sale, the ones regular for sale, right? So he'd find out from the buyer which areas they were interested in. He wouldn't drive around showing them all the homes. He didn't do any driving around showing homes. He would just send a bunch of them to the tenant buyer. The tenant buyer would pick some that they liked. Then he would make some phone calls. And inevitably, he would find them eventually. He'd find them a house from the MLS. Didn't have to do any marketing. Interesting concept. It's not going to work for everybody.
Would he ever buy the house from the seller and become the landlord? Essentially take the position we're in on all our properties?
No. He would.
I've always thought about something like that because we would go after higher price point properties at that point if we had somewhat of a hedge to know that, hey, this person could purchase this from us somewhat quickly.
Yeah, that's a little risky, though. I used to do that back in 2005, 2006. Myself, I used to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that to about 8 or 9 homes, and one of them worked, and the others did not. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, it was not worth it in my opinion. They all cash flowed, but the tenant buyer didn't buy them, and then the market crashed a couple years later, and so it wasn't my fault. No, but anyway, it's something to think about, right? Especially if you've got your license and you've got a tenant buyer that has good money, but you don't have a house that they like, right? Why not find them one?
Yeah, no, it's smart. I guarantee we've got people on our list right now that fit that exact scenario.
Now, you kind of have to have your realtor's license to do that because that's brokering. But, what this guy did, by the way, I was telling you all of this stuff, it wasn't him that was doing it. He brought on a buyer's agent onto his team. And she was an employee to him. But she had her license. So he did too. So he paid her. I don't think he was a broker. No, he wasn't a broker because he was with Remax. But this buyer's agent worked under him kind of as like his employee, but he paid her on commissions. And she would get 25% of the deal. He'd get 75% of whatever she brought in. But that's all she did all day. I mean, she would advertise these nice houses to get the tenant buyers, to get the people that had the money, and then would go out and find a house for them.
And she did all the legwork, all the running around, and he
Yeah.
just did the final negotiation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Jimmy and Bob, you were talking about Rently and showing houses. What is Rently? I've heard about this.
Yeah, so we just signed up this past week, but it's basically an electronic lockbox, very similar to a Supra, but you don't need to be an agent to access the box. And they're primarily used for rental showings. So this electronic combo lockbox goes on the property, and then tenants or potential tenants can sign up on their website or download the app on their phone, and they've got to register with a credit card, so you kind of have a built-in identification system on people who are going to be looking at your property. They charge them 99 cents, so it's a nominal fee, and then they can access as many properties as they want. But basically, they say they click the app, say, "Hey, I want to view 123 Main Street," and between 9 and 10, and then Rently shoots them a unique identification code and gives them a 1-hour window to access the property. And then they also have to be their phone has to be in like proximity to the house geographically, so they can't give the code out to their friend or send it to somebody for some other nefarious reasons. So pretty much a way to automate all our showings. So we got like 12 boxes the other day, and we're in the process of getting on all our properties now.
Nice. Rently, Rently. I just looked it up. Rently.com. I used to just let tenant buyers in when I was doing a ton of lease options. I would just put a lockbox on it, have them call me when they were at the house, give them the code, and then have them call me when they left. And I never had a problem, except once. They stole some of the towels that were to be used for some light staging. They stole the towels, but yeah, that's really cool. I think even just losing the towels, if that happens once in a while, it's definitely worth the cost, saving yourself or your staff time to go show all these homes, right?
Yeah. Basically, the staff.
We do the same thing as you, Joe, where we just have people call in and we give out the lockbox code. But with the amount of volume we're doing, we're getting probably 300, 400 calls a week.
Oh, wow.
And we've got a guy whose full-time job is answering the phone and giving out lockbox codes. So if we can, save all that energy and put him onto doing some higher dollar activities, it's going to be a huge savings for us.
So, what kind of staff do you have right now helping you with all of this?
So right now we have, I'd say 6 folks. One guy is a field manager, project manager. We've got 3 admin folks, just rent collection, paperwork, all that kind of stuff, bookkeeping, and then 2 guys who are on our kind of handle all the incoming calls and do all the negotiations with our lease option tenant buyers.
Very cool. Do you guys ever package deals as lease options and then turn around and sell them to other investors?
We haven't, but we are looking at that. We have got a lot of interest lately from outside folks seeing what we're doing and seeing the price points in St. Louis, who a little jealous and want to get in on the action. So yeah, we are thinking of offering that service.
You could even double dip on these kinds of deals, couldn't you? Like you buy the deal, you put the tenant buyer in it, and you collect their $3,000 to $5,000 for option deposit. And then you turn around and you sell that deal, or you just sell, you mark it up $5,000-$10,000, and you sell the deal to another investor. And so you can profit twice from that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. We actually are in the process of doing a deal almost exactly like that, except we reversed it, where we wholesaled the property right off the bat to an investor and made $10,000, and now we're going to place a lease option tenant buyer for them and make a little bit of a cut there.
Okay, yeah. So you have an agreement with him to keep some of the deposit money that the tenant buyer puts down or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. Excellent. Why have you guys chosen to do lease options and not seller financing? Why don't you guys create a wraparound note or do seller financing? Why lease options?
I think the primary reason is one, we found we can get just as much down payment on a lease option as we can on owner finance. And, we still get to maintain all the tax benefits, and we don't take the capital gain hit for doing the land contract. So we prefer to just keep it that way. And then the other thing is it's a lot quicker to get somebody out if things do go south on an eviction versus a foreclosure.
Yeah, that's an important point. Real important point. So you guys have private money in place to get these deals. Do you mind if I ask who your private lender is? I'm just kidding. I was gonna ask you, how do you find private lenders? Do you have several that you work with? Do you have just one or two? What are some of the tips or advice you can give to folks who want to find it?
I'll let Jimmy handle that one. Jimmy's been blessed from birth with the gift of gab, and it works well with chasing down private lenders.
Like, that's how we divide up kind of our duties around here. Bob's the acquisitions, and then I chase money all day.
Okay. How do you chase the money?
I mean, it originally started, I was in medical sales, and it was basically starting like people I knew had some money laying around, and I would just like have a sales call with them. And that was kind of slow and tedious. But I don't know what you guys see. And like, Alex, how old are you?
35.
Okay. So you could probably back me up on this. Like, Bob's 33, I'm 37. And I think right now, the way the market is, and I think our peer group who is making good six-figure money, like, they don't trust the market, and they have no idea how to start investing or where to invest it. So I kind of approach it two-prong. I go after that 35 to 50-year-old person.
Really? 30?
Yeah.
Wow. Man, we're in the 35 to 50-year-old category now. Why not the 20 to 35?
Millennials don't save money, Alex.
Yeah. That's funny.
Or you know what I mean? There's plenty of like people making a ton of money in that demographic, and they have no idea what to do with it, and they do not trust the market.
That's right.
And then we have a couple of whale investors who are high net worth individual people that kind of knew our story and trusted us and wanted to get involved.
So it's just flapping your lips and networking, right?
And then now we flap
your lips. Ron LeGrand term right there.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
And then
highest paid profession in America, flapping your lips. That's what he says.
But if you record it on YouTube and then put it up there, like, we've gotten investors just from YouTube, just from us popping off on Fridays and throwing it up on YouTube.
Wow. And so what are you saying on YouTube? Because you can't solicit for money, right? But you're just talking about your deals, or?
We talk about how good life insurance is. We talk about how good real estate is. And we talk about how horrible qualified plans are.
That's right. We were going to talk about that.
Yeah. And we're like, hey, dude, if you're 35 and hate your job, there's no chance that qualified plan is going to get you away from that job.
You sent me a book on insurance. And
yeah.
I started reading it. I don't remember how far I got into it. Just maybe a chapter or two. Talk about this, because this is really fascinating. What does insurance have to do with private money and real estate?
Insurance has everything to do with money. It has everything to do with banks. It has everything. Insurance pretty much runs the world, but no one will tell you that, especially whole life insurance. So when you go deposit money into a bank, Joe, what happens to that money?
The bank takes it and reinvests it somewhere else. Or does something.
And where do they invest it?
They lend it to for houses, or I don't know.
They lend it to real estate. They lend it to people like us, right?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't, if you could, would you take out the middleman of the bank?
Yeah.
So essentially, if you get a whole life policy, you just need to do a paradigm shift and look at it as a bank yourself. And most people don't think that they can take loans against their life insurance policy.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, however they wrote the tax code, I don't know why they did it this way, but if you put money into a whole life policy, you can then borrow money out. And while your money's working in the real estate, it's still getting a dividend from the life insurance company of 5%.
Now, that's interesting you bring that up, all right? Because I have a whole life policy, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And I've heard things about that with borrowing against your policy. But so let's say
What company is it with?
it's with Guardian.
Okay. Guardian does this infinite banking.
Yes, right. So let's say my cash policy, my cash value is starting to build up, right?
Right.
I think it's probably starting to get close to $40,000 now, maybe.
Okay.
And I've had it since I was 24.
Right.
You know, so actually it could be more. I don't know. I'll have to check. It jumps. It jumps now as time goes by.
And do you mind me asking how much you have in a bank?
What?
How much cash do you have in a bank, if you don't mind me asking?
How much cash do I have in the bank?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to disclose that in front of the millions of people.
Trillions. Billions.
Let's just say, for argument's sake, let's say you had 40 grand there.
Okay, we can match the 40,000. Okay.
What kind of return are you getting in the bank?
Nothing.
What are you getting in your life insurance policy?
I don't know. What does it average out to? 5 or 6%, maybe?
Yeah. And so why do you keep money in the bank?
Because it's nice and it looks pretty there.
And you have access to it, right?
Absolutely.
What if you had access to an investment vehicle that, just like a bank, you call and say, hey, I want my money back, and they give it to you?
So how can I stuff money into the policy just randomly?
Do I
have to get more and have higher premiums in order to do that?
Yeah, you'd have to build out a policy to hold kind of whatever you think your yearly savings amount is going to be. But there is a lot of flexibility in these policies. And if for whatever reason you have a down year, I think the minimum is like 20% of the total maximum. So let's say, you wanted to commit, $40,000 a year. On the low end, you might have to actually, do $5,000. But the other cool thing is if you have a low year and say, you've committed to the $40,000 a year premium, but this year you can only do a minimum of $5,000, you can retroactively up to 5 years put money back into any shortage years. So there's a lot of flexibility in these things. And then with the policy loan, you can take it within 72 hours of putting the money into the policy.
Yeah, my first policy I funded, and 72 hours later I took the money back out and put it into a house.
Okay, So now give me the benefits of doing that.
So the biggest one is your money is working in two places at once. So you're basically leveraging your own cash. And real estate investors, we love leverage. But you're earning your 5% inside the policy, whether there's a policy loan against it or not. So your $40,000 is earning at 5% inside the policy. And we take a policy loan, and now if we can arbitrage what we're paying our own private bank back, our own life insurance policy at the rate we're borrowing, let's say we borrow from a policy at 5%, and now we can put that into a real estate investment and make 15, 20%. Now we're making money inside the policy and making money outside the policy. And the money that's inside the policy, that 5% is compounding tax-free. And another kind of more advanced thing is if you can prove that you're going to pay a higher interest rate in the market. Like we've got a local hard money lender who charges 18% interest. And if I say, hey, this is the market option for me as a real estate investor is to pay 18% to this guy, I can justify paying 18% back to my own personal life insurance policy. So that money can be siphoned off basically as an expense to my business. So tax-free, I'm taking, I'm cutting off 15%, 18% off the deal and stuffing it into my policy.
So you're charging yourself a bunch of interest, but putting it back into the policy, which would be paid out in dividends or in disbursements when you get older.
Correct. And it's completely liquid in the short run. There's no requirements to borrow the money. If you want to spend the money on a vacation, you can. Jimmy put together a really cool analysis of how Harbaugh is being paid this way. You want to talk about that?
So the coach of Michigan I don't think you can really talk about it quick, but
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
You know what? Why don't we have another episode where we talk exactly about how to deal structure within your life insurance policy?
I would love to do it.
You want to do a part 2?
Sure.
Okay.
The main reason, I mean, so while I'm chasing money, I need people who have cash sitting around doing nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so the best target I found was these people who have cash value in their life insurance.
Interesting.
And so that we teamed up with some financial planners, and then every investor who invests with us, we basically make them get one of these policies.
Okay.
Because it offsets the ordinary interest I pay them, half of it's taxed because they're high net worth people, right?
Right.
So if half of it's taxed, and if we give them 8% and 4% is going to taxes, we're like, well, you can get that 4% back because the life insurance company will pay you a 5% dividend.
Okay.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Well, let's do this. Let's stop it here. We'll record a part 2.
Okay.
And Jimmy
I
and
love
Bob,
talking about this.
Yeah, this is good stuff. We've never talked about it before. I got some questions. Jimmy and Bob, what do you guys have a website people can go to get more information? Maybe they want to invest with you guys, buy some of your deals.
Yeah.
Where can they go?
Yeah, you can go to Joint Ops Properties. That's JOINTOPS Properties. And Joint Ops Properties is a play on Jimmy's Army background and my Air Force background. You can also email us at jointotsproperties@gmail.com. And then you can also go to autopilotassets.com, where I'm holding a webinar that shows you how to structure some lease option deals.
And then if you go to YouTube and just Google Joint Ops Properties, our station pops up. And if you want to see the actual numbers with the life insurance, the title of the video is Real Estate and Whole Life Insurance and the Great and One.
Oh. All right, so I'm writing this down here. What was your autopilot thing website?
Autopilotassets.com.
Autopilotassets.com. Cool. All right, thanks, guys. We will take a break here and finish with part 2 in just a minute.